Welcome back to the Gotham Sports Machine. I'm your host, Jack Healy, joined by my co-host, Mark Healy. Today we got a special guest, George Kurtz, a veteran fantasy sports writer, analyst, and a radio host of Fantasy Sports Today on the SportsGrid Network. How you doing today, George and Mark?
I'm doing great.
Doing well, right? A little bit of a dead zone here, right? We got Major League Baseball All-Star Game coming up, and the NFL. We have a month pretty much where nothing. Well, we hope nothing happens because let's face it, guys. If anything, we do hear anything in the news, it's usually bad news regarding the NFL players at this point.
Right.
Yeah, it seems to be almost like an every week kind of thing. You're like, you're seeing something between Schefter or just ESPN reporting guy getting arrested or
Yeah,
something crazy.
crazy.
It's just sports now, but I mean, this really, I mean, you said it's the dead zone of sports, but July is like almost like fantasy football season. Like, you really got nothing else to do. Everybody's just looking at all the rosters that have been constructed. Most guys have signed by now. There's a few kind of holdouts. You don't know where Diggs is going to go, but most big names are where they're going to be playing. So, I guess my question is like, when we look at all these running backs, and we like I think the top tier is very clear between Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, and James Cook. Are we looking at any of those guys as the number one overall player? Because I mean, I'm looking at Gibbs and he's checking almost every box for me. So George or Mark, you guys like him as your number one?
I
Well,
think
look,
when you look at running backs,
no, go ahead, George.
first thing you worry about is what kind of league are we playing in? All right, we're playing in a standard, which really isn't standard anymore. PPR, half point PPR. That's where we're going with that first. After that, because if you're playing in a PPR, I can see you going for a wide receiver. It's a passing game in today's game, right? Mark and I, we've been around forever. We know when back in the 80s and 70s and stuff like that, where they did run the ball a lot, where Emmitt Smith would get the ball 35 times a game. They don't do that anymore. All right. And these guys get hurt a lot. The top 10 running backs, my guess is 4 to 5 will be hurt at some point this year. So I could see why you'd want to avoid that in the first round. You want to take a more definitive player here. This is not to say that wide receivers don't get hurt. Of course they do. But they seem to get hurt, at least the top guys, at less of a volume here. So I can see his thing away from going for a Ja'Marr Chase, a Puka Nakua, who, by the way, is dumb as rocks. But, I can see you going that direction here. Now, to answer your question, I have the number one pick in two leagues. Now, they're both super flex leagues, which changes things a little bit. They're both 6 point touchdown for a quarterback league, so I might go a quarterback there. But if I were to take a running back there, and I am sort of wrestling with that, James Cook is not in this discussion here. Great player, but he's not in this discussion. It's Gibbs or Bijan. And the only reason I might not take Bijan is, hey, Mark, who's the quarterback there for the Falcons?
We don't know. We don't know yet. It's either Tua or it's our guy, Penix. So I don't know. I guess I does that really matter though, George? Who the
Sure.
quarterback is?
Sure. Let's face it, you and I defensive coordinators, it's Michael Penix or Tua. Hello, 8-man box. I know Drake London's really good. He's a threat there. Kyle Pitts, all right, whatever. I think the jury's still out on him, but they paid him. But I'm stopping Bijan. If Tua can beat me through the air, fine, he can beat me through the air. And I'm sort of thinking he will be the start here, though once again, this is not something would write that in pen. But if it's Penix, don't care there either. All right, 8-man box. I am stopping Bijan. At least the Detroit Lions, we know they can throw the ball. I'm not a big golf guy either, but he's better than Penix and Tua. All right, then they've got more receiving threats there. So right now, and this has changed, by the way, because you would have asked me this question a month ago, 6 weeks ago, after the season, it was Robinson. Now it's Jahmyr Gibbs. I would think Jahmyr Gibbs number one overall.
Yeah, I was the same way. When I was doing this, I started with Bijan, number one. I mean, I'm a Falcon fan, Homer. I just watched him have one of the best seasons I've ever seen from a running back. But when you look at Gibbs' schedule, when you look at he's got no really competition in his backfield. They got Pacheco in the offseason, but he's not going to be used like they used David Montgomery. David Montgomery was Dan Campbell's favorite guy in the world. And that took away from Gibbs at times, even though he was having a monster season. So you factor in that and the fact that Bijan, again, we don't know who's his quarterback going to be. I think Gibbs is the clear number one. And as far as Cook, I mean, Yes, he isn't in that tier of Bijan and Gibbs, but I mean, I think he's right under, and I think he's better than that next tier of like John Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon, Derrick Henry, because those guys are older. These guys are guys with wear and tear. Cook is still pretty young, and he's got the equity, and like they got DJ Moore, but I don't see them all of a sudden, even though they have Josh Allen, becoming this pass heavy team when they were the best running football team, arguably in football last year. They're gonna keep feeding Cook, and he had 1,600 yards and he was scoring touchdowns almost at will at times. So I think people are not sleeping on Cook, but I think he's a little underrated going into this year. So what do we
George,
think? Yeah, no, you.
one of the things we always do, or at least one of the things I always do, with fantasy football. Obviously, Jack is a much better fantasy football player than I am, and you're an expert. So what I always try to do is if I'm not gonna get, and we have a dynasty league, so like last year, I had Kenny Walker, I drafted RJ Harvey because I felt like I wanted a guy who was gonna, John Gruden, who was like, oh, he's the best running back in the draft, that's the guy you should go grab. I still have DeAndre Swift, as a guy that seems to always get some points. So so I'm always looking for the outlier, the guy who no one's really talking about, but could have significant, not just a guy that you can plug in on a week off, but something where who's a guy that's either coming into the league as a rookie, or it has changed teams like Walker. What guy in your mind, if you had to pick one or two guys that are going to come out of nowhere to be better than they were, let's say a year ago, uh, give me like two or three guys who you think as running backs will have value significantly.
Well, once again, as far as rookies, obviously they weren't here last year. The top rookie in my mind would be Love out of Arizona. Listen, there's a lot of question marks there as well. You got Jacoby Brissett, who, let's face it, he's terrible. I know he'll put up some fantasy numbers, and that's really all we care about, right? He made Mike Wilson all of a sudden, maybe a third, fourth round pick with what they were doing last year, but he's not a very good NFL quarterback, and sooner or later they will go away from him. This is assuming they will work out their contract situation. Right now, Brissett is holding out as he wants, I guess, starting quarterback money. But Brissett is purely a fantasy guy, not a NFL guy here. And you wonder what that could do to Love because they're going to be behind in a lot of games. And I like the player, I do. But it's the Cardinals. They're going to be trailing, and they can be trailing 10, 17 points, and that running game goes away. He will have still have value in PPR leagues, but in standard leagues, I'd be a little bit worried there as far as that. Seattle, they've got the rookie as well there, but I think he's going to be sort of squeezed, as far as that's concerned, Price, because you got they've already said they're already sort of warning you about him. That we got Charbonnet, we got this guy, we got Helani. I think Helani they're going to give sort of a run to in the beginning of the year because they're not going to trust him on third downs to protect Sam Darnold. And then later in the year, Charbonnet will return from the ACL. Probably not till Halloween or somewhere around there, but he's sort of getting squeezed there from both ends. That's not to say he can't win the job. All right, he could very well win the job, but I think there's less margin for error there. So I would be very careful if you were thinking about taking a race there. It's running backs. There's no sleepers here because that's all we do is talk about these guys because you need at least two to start. In my home league, we start three. All right, so it even makes it tougher here. But we're all looking for running backs. This is why we drafted them earlier. Yeah, if running backs weren't a problem position, Jamar Chase, my first round pick, easy, all right? Because I think I feel safer with him. But running backs run out quickly, all right. And there are very few. Once again, showing mark on our age. Back in the day, Sanders, Emmett Smith, these guys ran the ball. There were no backups. There were no running back twos on the team. He didn't care. He only played if the guy got hurt. Now every team has a running back one and a 1B or a very high 2A, and they're going to get 10 to 12 touches a game because they're going to protect the guy, right? So running back is very, very difficult. All right. Omarion Hampton is a guy I think we're forgetting about to answer your question, Mark. All right. Then a guy, he got hurt last year. The Chargers, we'll see if that offensive line can stay healthy. They're a dangerous team here. So he's a guy I look at. The Denver running back situation is probably something I want to avoid. because I just don't trust any of these guys. Who's going to be that guy? I bid it last year at Ramondre Stevenson. All right. I didn't think he'd be the guy. He fumbles the ball every other play, and he ended up going off. Right. So you got to be careful there. But that's the problem in today's NFL. They all have two running backs. So we're sort of guessing. And I'm not a big handcuff guy because of that reason. Every team has a good second running back. So I don't necessarily have to grab my team's handcuff because, yes, that's great if your guy gets hurt. But if you need a running back, you may want the handcuff for another team who's going to play more snaps than your handcuff. You understand what I'm saying? Your handcuff maybe gets 6 touches a game, but the handcuff for, I don't know, Pittsburgh is getting 10 to 12 touches a game. Well, then I'd rather have that handcuff. All right, because at least he's going to play on an every week basis and get more touches here for the bye weeks here and not just be an injury insurance for me. But running back is very difficult to navigate. And one thing I don't do, and I think, Mark, this strategy really started when you and I were at Sirius, the zero running back strategy. Can't do it. If I'm doing that, it's in a league I don't care about. But I just want to see what the hell happens. I'll do it in a mock draft to see what my team looks like. But it's happened to me by accident. So I'm going to do 8, 9 live drafts a year, whatever it might be, and that's down from what I used to. It'll happen by accident where the best player available every time I go is not a running back. So yeah, I accident, but never do I go into a draft going, hey, I'm not drafting running backs till round 7, round 8. I just get too much stress if I do go that direction.
I definitely agree with you on Hampton. I have him as my like sixth running back this year. I think people really like I mean, I drafted him last year and I was very like bullish on it. I was like he was really the only running back that I saw being an RB1 on the board. So I was like, you know what? Everybody loves this guy. Let me just take him, see what happens. And when I actually watched him play, he looked great. I mean, he got banged up a little bit, but so did the entire Chargers offense. They lost half their line. Herbert was playing on like one leg. It did not look good for LA last year. I think getting healthier, he's got more experience now. He'll fit more. He'll be more comfortable in that offense. And they weren't really throwing to him as much at first. They started throwing it to him towards the end of the year, and that's where he really showed how dangerous he was. You get that pass catching back that can also run the ball. That's a 3 down guy. Harbaugh's gonna love that, and he's gonna be just feeding him, and feeding him. As far as Jadarian Price, I really think he's just gonna take over that backfield. As someone who was a big Notre Dame fan and was watching him last year, he was behind the best running back in the nation, and he was still a top 3 to 5 running back. He was getting like 25% of the touches, and he was absolutely explosive with those. So even if he doesn't get the complete 1A job, I think he'll eventually win it. And even in limited touches, he's shown he could be explosive and just rip insane runs. So if anyone's like teetering, like later in your draft, I would be all over Jadarian Price, especially with how good Kenny Walker looked last year. So I guess my question to you would be, I mean, I think it's a very deep class. Do you agree that you can kind of wait for these running backs later? I mean, you kind of already said it, like you want to draft a receiver in the first round, but I mean, the receivers look bare bones when you start getting later, and the running backs don't. I'm looking at like running backs like 20 through 30. I'll see like a guy like Quinshawn Judkins. He could be a top 10 running back. He probably won't be because Cleveland's terrible, but he looked fantastic in certain spots last year.
In
So,
a in a
are
perfect
you
world,
comfortable? Yeah.
I would like to have a running back anchor, where I can sleep at night. Like I said, most leagues, now that's not all leagues. I mentioned my home league is 3, but most leagues you start 2 running backs. So theoretically, if you're in now once again, uh, and one thing we experts always talk about is 12-team leagues, 14, 16. The majority of leagues are 10. All right, they're not 12, they're not 14. So that means you only started 20 running backs. I mean, once again, simple math there. Obviously, we're going to have running backs in our flex positions, on our bench. So we're going to draft 50 to 60. Now you mentioned, and there's really no argument there. There's a lot of name guys, but if I was being snarky, I might say, yeah, but they all suck. And there's some truth in that. The reason there is none of them are great. So you're looking for that breakout guy. And yes, there will be some. Look at Kenneth Gainwell last year, right? No one thought he was going to do what he did for Pittsburgh. Now, there were reasons for that. All right, Aaron Rodgers is 110 years old. He didn't want to be hit anymore. All right, and that's not a joke. You look at his yards, how quickly he throws the ball. He was #1 in the NFL. He didn't want to get hit. All right, so he was throwing the ball at Kenneth Gainwell. Gainwell's not there anymore. He's with Tampa. I don't expect Baker Mayfield to do that as much. I think he will to a certain degree, but not as much. So the situation has changed. But that also might mean we might look at other Pittsburgh running backs because I don't think Rodgers is going to change. He's still not going to want to get hit. Once again, I'm talking about a PPR league. As I say, most of my conversations will have to do with PPR. PPR is now the new standard.
Mm.
So that's generally what people play. Some kind of PPR, half point PPR. So, like I said, I think we were talking earlier about the number one pick, where I might lean towards Chase in a PPR, which is why he is my number one wide receiver. But if I don't have the number one, you're talking me at 3 or 4, then I'm looking at, I assume Gibbs and Bijan will be gone, but then I'm going to be looking at the other guys we've talked about here. All right. McCaffrey, I
Yeah,
don't
I
know if
was
he can do
gonna
it
get
two
to
years in
that.
a row, boys. I
He's
don't know.
scary.
I don't know. I had him last year in one of my, and it didn't help me win the league. Great. My next draft will be a Scott Fishbowl, which starts on Monday, I believe. I don't know what draft pick I have there. I haven't looked. Jonathan Taylor is going to be in this discussion first round. I'm going to be very afraid of Devon Chain because once again, the situation I said, it's worse than what Atlanta is, right? I mean, at least Atlanta has legitimate wide receiver, Pitts. They can make a threat there where they can throw the football. I don't know what the hell Miami can do. Forget 8 men in the box. Maybe all 11 guys in the box stop this guy. Make Malik Willis a throw to, I don't know, it was a Washington, wherever they have there. And I don't think that's going to work there. So be very careful about him. I do like James Cook, by the way. I have no problem with him being the 4th or 5th running back. It was not, not the 1 or 2. Do we trust Gentry again? What about Barkley, who didn't do much last year? What's going on in Philadelphia, where they all seem to hate each other, that sort of thing? What about Derrick Henry? Can he still be that guy? Is he finally going to hit that wall that we've been waiting for? So you see, as we further we go down there's so many more question marks about the running backs. And these are the top 10 guys. We haven't even gone to the guys you're talking about, Rico Dowdle and Chuba Herbert. I mentioned Stevenson or Montgomery now with Houston. Can he do it away from Jahmyr Gibbs? There are just so many more question marks about the running backs where the wide receivers are safer. And I'm a safer person in many ways. So that's why I tend to lean towards the wide receivers because they're safer. That being said, I will almost every league I play in. Like I said, I'm going to play in 10, 11, 12, with the exception of Superflex, which throws the quarterback in there as well. But any kind of regular league, I'd be shocked if one of my first 2 picks isn't a running back.
So, obviously, we've said it already. Everybody who watches the show knows that Jack and I are Falcons fans. You, of course, being my old co-host over at Sirius, all the teams I root for. And, obviously, I hated to see Tyler Algier go. And of course, he goes to Arizona and he signs a deal. Now, at the time, I was like, wow, this is great for him. He's finally going to get his touches. He's finally going to be able to get back to that 1,000-yard running back that he was before, the Falcons, kind of demoted him and made him more of a power back. So now he goes to a team that drafts Love in the first round. So obviously, that's a situation where I was hoping that my backup running back was now going to be a starter. Would you take either of those guys in a league? Let's say the 5th or 6th round when you're looking for a running back, or do you stay away from both of those guys because of the muddled situation that not only affects them but affects a lot of other teams?
You almost can't avoid it, Mark. All right, you name one team, but we can go up and down the roster. Most teams, if a team doesn't have a second running back, well, then we're jumping on that starting running back, right? He's a 1st-round pick. Tyler Algier was a funny thing. I mean, because Robinson had a fantastic won a lot of people a lot of leagues. Lord knows he helped me win my league. All right, but Tyler Algier was ticking us off, right? Because he would come in 70, he would steal touchdowns. Like, what the hell is going on here? And then he's gone, so we're all celebrating if you have Robinson in the keeper or dynasty league. And he goes to Arizona. And I was happy for the guy. And in real life, he get the starting job, let's see what he can do. And then they draft a running back, and you're like, oh, he's gonna be like, I mean, are you kidding me? I still can't get. Not that this, that your prices or love is not going to be Bijan. So it's not the same thing. But once again, he's got to really battle for it. He's got to really battle for it here rather than just get the starting job here. So to answer your question, you can't avoid it. All right. I don't want it to be my first running back where I have to worry about this. That would be not ideal. I said, I want that first running back to be solid. Yeah, okay, I got my number one guy. He doesn't have that much competition for touches. He is the guy. If I don't have that, I mean, it's just I could still have drafted a running back in the 2nd round, but it probably means I draft him at 20, and 21, not top 10.
Right.
So that's why those top 8, 9 running backs go so early because we're not worried about what you're talking about. It's that guy. It's James Cook. I'll put Kenneth Walker in here as well. All these guys, they're the number ones. We can sleep tight. We know we're golden there. It's very hard. It gets very dicey very quick. It's also why if you lose that number one running back, he gets hurt. It's hard to come back from.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm very like I like Algier, but I don't know if I'm really worried about him taking Love's touches. He's too good. I mean, Love was arguably the best player in the draft. They took him that high for a reason when they could have taken linemen, they could have traded down. That pick was very valuable. So I just don't see them being like,
I need
oh,
help fixing my stick.
they gave him good
Let
money,
me play
but
the
I just don't
tutorial for
see
you.
it.
Do you have a pipe wrench? Is it?
And then
Maybe I should skip.
Sorry, technical difficulties.
I don't have a wrench, by the way. Maybe a crutch.
Sorry about that.
my guy, was it first time?
Rookie mistake. Rookie mistake.
No, just Jeremiah Love. He's a three down guy. He's a fantastic pass catcher, one of the best pass catching backs I think I've ever seen coming out of the draft. And last year, watching him every game is just like you don't know what he's gonna do. He had that one run where it looked like he was down, he rolled over the guy, and he's up for his 80-yard touchdown. He's a human highlight reel that got stuck on maybe one of the worst offenses in the league. Like outside of Marvin Harrison, I guess Michael Wilson. Do they even really have anything? And Brissett, again, he's a check down merchant, which will be good for Jeremiah Love. He'll get a lot of these swing passes, screen passes. So I don't think it keeps me away from taking him, but it does keep me away from taking him high just because how bad this offense is. But for Genti, it didn't really matter last year. He still balled out. So I don't know if I'm exactly like scared to take him, but
My
rookie
only
running
wor-
backs are always a question mark, especially on a bad team.
well, the first thing we worry about rookie running backs is not whether or not they can run the ball. We know they can. Not whether or not they can catch the ball. Generally, they can do that. Not all. I mean, certainly some running backs have hands of stone. Can they pick up the blitz? If they can't, they ain't playing. And I'm not. By the way, I'm not saying this about Love. I'm just saying in general.
Yeah.
All right, I can play devil's advocate all day long here. I like Love. I do. But I'll just play devil's advocate for the sake of the show. And I am very careful about my rookie running backs about where I'm going to draft them because you know they all get hype up the wazoo here, and we'll see. That being said, we know Love's going to get the touches because they did draft him at number 2 overall. And Jack, as you already said, they could have drafted anybody else they wanted other than Mendoza, right? So they're going to do some damage there. I don't mind this offense, by the way. All right, it actually has all the pieces. Percent okay, but you got Love, Harrison, Wilson. That's a fine combo here. Kendrick Bourne, your number 3. We don't forget about Trey McBride.
Oh yeah, I did forget about McBride. He is a
Your number 1 tight end being drafted, by the way. So we'll see. By the way, the Scott Fishbowl tight ends get an extra point per reception. That's going to make that very interesting. He'll be a first round pick there. Brissett is the issue. The offensive line can be an issue as well. The defense still has work to do. By the way, the defense being bad could be good for us for the passing offense. Maybe not the Love because once again they'll be trailing, but for the passing offense, got to throw the ball to catch up. So Brissett was, I mean, fantasy wise last year, he was really actually he made Michael Wilson probably a 4th round pick this year.
yeah, ended my season with that 30 bomb or 40 bomb, whatever.
Nuts he was doing, and Mike Wilson's he's an all right guy, but all of a sudden, Brissett made him alive. But once again, same reasons I just mentioned here. They were trailing every game, so that helps. And Brissett and Harrison, by the way, they didn't have that, right? They didn't have that connection here. We'll see if that picks up during the offseason. Although, like as I said, right now, Brissett ain't participating in the offseason.
Which I guess you begin to wonder, does Carson Beck have any shot? I don't think he does, but again, holdouts can get weird, especially with a quarterback. So, uh,
Well, I mean, I Brissett's going to start the season. All right, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Once again, come Halloween, you're two. They play in a rough division. San Fran, Seattle, they're not going anywhere. All
mhm.
right, they're not. I think they're improving. They're not going anywhere. Sooner or later, you're 2-6, 3-7, whatever it might be. You got to go to Beck. You don't have a choice. Minshew's the backup, by the way, but who cares? He's terrible too. You don't have a choice anymore. You got to see what you have. If I'm Arizona, I mean, once again, this is more NFL wise. You sort of want to bomb this year. All right. You don't want to be you don't want to win 6 games. You want to win two, three, 4 games, get a top five pick. We know next year is a much stronger class as far as college quarterbacks coming out in. So Arizona, I don't think has much incentive to win. They just want to see some improvement here, but you really don't want to win.
Yeah.
One last thing for me, George, and as always, thank you so much for spending some time with us and taking the time. Um, look, I know you do this, but how much do you think the average expert, the person who does what you do and co-hosts a show and is available as a guest on so many shows as an expert, how much studying uh, of the outlying things do you do as far as, for instance, coaching changes, offensive coordinator changes, all those different things that will affect the player that's either being drafted, that's either on the team, or either, like as we said before, changing teams, all that stuff. How much studying? I know you do a ton of it, but how much do you think the average expert puts the effort into all of those different intangibles when they were trying to figure out who they're going to draft, especially in the like the keeper leagues like Jack and I are in, and I'm sure you're in as well, making the decisions on players and whether or not to retain them, to trade them, or to draft them. How much studying do you think the average NFL expert, fantasy football expert does?
I've always hated the term expert for us, by the way. We're not experts. We're analysts. That's really all we are. A doctor's an expert. Engineer's an expert. We're
We,
not experts.
you're an
And
expert. I'm definitely not, but you are.
I mean, if you're in our business, I mean, it's really what we do here. Now, I'm a football, baseball, hockey guy. All right. So I'm pretty much all year long. All I do, listen, after the show's over, I go on, hit the sites, right? Whether it's X and all the other sites, all the reporters. And I think if you really want to know what you're doing here, you can use X. You're not looking to interact with people on X. You're looking to follow the sports writers. All right, for each NFL team. All right, there's generally, depending on the team, like Dallas will have 18 sports writers, but Cleveland may have two. And you follow the writers; they'll post what's going on here. I have spreadsheets of all the teams, and when I hear something that I think is relevant, I'll type it in. What you just said, Mark, offensive coordinator change, and I might, look up. I'm after research. Okay, what is this guy like? This doesn't mean it's foolproof, by the way, because I can write down that Joe Schmo is now the new offensive coordinator for whatever, Dallas, and he generally likes to run the ball. Well, maybe he liked to run the ball because the other team he was with didn't have any freaking wide receivers. As a Dallas, he's going to throw the ball, so things change here. But I make those little notes here. All right, I do that for once again for baseball and hockey as well. Football is really the easiest because let's face it, it's 364, 365, 12 months a year, 7 days a week. We all talk football. Baseball is solid. Hockey's the hardest because it's the hardest place to find news here. But yeah, I mean, a good portion of my time is into this. Like I said, the next few hours of my day now will be tracking the news, whether it's, of course, the three sports that I follow here. It's also my job. You mentioned I can be a guest on any show at any time. SportsGrid could call me now. Hey, we need you on in half an hour, and they'll do that because they know that I'm up to date on everything. So I think if you're going to take yourself seriously in this industry, you need to be that guy. It's not easy to break into here. All right, it's not. All right, pretty much started out with you. I was doing a little, working for RotoWire and a couple of other places before that, and it grew from there. But you have to be reliable, and you have to know your stuff. And one key, by the way, that I've learned real quickly, you won't know the answer to every question, but there's always a laptop next to you, right? You need to learn to BS a little bit if you don't know the answer. Oh yeah, yeah, Mark, that's a good question here. While you're typing in,
Right, right.
the answer to the question here. We all do that too. Yeah, that's why I've always preferred radio more than TV because radio you can get away with that, right? TV they might see you typing away, but like I said, for me it's a good part of my day, Mark. Most of what I do is sports related in some content.
I just want to finish it off. I was listening to the first time we did a podcast, like 4 or 5 years ago when we had you on, and we were taught like the conversation is just so completely different. It's hilarious. It was like Rodgers was on the trade block. Maybe he was coming to the Jets. Saquon and Daniel Jones still on the Giants. The Falcons, where it was the Julio Jones thing just came out where he wanted to get out and traded from Atlanta. Like the whole landscape has just completely changed. It just shows you how crazy sports can be in just a small period of time.
Sports is the ultimate reality show. It's the ultimate reality show because none of us really knows what's going on. Like I said, I know we know more than most. We put all the pieces together here. This is what I try and do here with all the information I have. Try and put the pieces together and make an informed or educated decision here. But sports is the ultimate reality show because you're dealing with people. I mean, look at I think Jackie said earlier in the show. Look at the Brandon Ayuk thing right now. This is
Oh God.
this is fun TV. This guy is
Yeah.
self-destructing. I mean, it's like players do this all the time. You just don't know who's going to flip out like this. All right, then San Fran's screwing him over. They won't release him. He thinks he's going to Washington. I don't think Washington's going to touch him with a 12-foot pole with everything he's doing. But even if he does, he's going to get the minimum contract here. No one's giving him any money. So, like I said, sports is the ultimate reality show because you're dealing with real people and they have real problems, like the rest of us. And you just never know what's going to happen.
No. That's why everyone loves it so much. Well, this has been another great episode of the Gotham Sports Machine. Thanks for coming on, George. And we'll see you guys next week. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts and content, we are there.
Good seeing you, George. Take care of yourself, pal.
Anytime, boys. Be good.